Have you always wanted to be a cinematographer, or did you want to be a director instead?
Cinematography came to me kind of later, and I feel like I stumbled into it. Directing was kind of always the goal. I loved films, and I loved specifically atmosphere. I was always attracted to the atmosphere, which when I was a kid usually meant genre, horror, sci-fi, fantasy, like the fantastical. And I think that's what drew me initially to it, is a totally different world. And then over the years, especially once I got into college and grad school more specifically, I was making films with friends. I was writing a lot at the time. Also, my school was small, so doing film mixed with theater, so plays and all that. And the more that I did that, I loved it, but everything was a little slow. Like, you sit by yourself, you're writing. Directing, you have to organize a lot of things. You didn't really have producers at this school. And I started to pay attention to cinematography, knowing my own thesis film was coming soon, and there was nobody in my school that was a very good shooter. And so I just started studying that, and other people started to ask me to shoot their films. And so I started learning cinematography really by working on other people's films, and the immediate gratification of it became very addictive. Like, directing, it took me months to organize a short, and whether I was writing the script or getting it from somebody else, it still took time. But, cinematography, it's just like, okay, well, let's light the scene now. Let's shoot it now. And that immediate gratification, I think, was a big turnover for me. I think I just got addicted to knowing I can make this happen right now. Whereas writing, which I still very, very rarely, I still do some, and I still hope to find my way back to directing. I miss directing a lot. I miss interacting with actors, not that I don't in my job now, but in a slightly more intimate way, perhaps. But yeah, it was something that I never aimed for, but then it just found its way to me. So yeah. But now I love it. I've for a long time I've been fond of saying it's my second favorite job on earth, behind directing. But now I don't know, might be 1A, 1B, because I do love it, and I love the there's almost like your responsibilities are a bit lessened. I hate to put it that way, but I watch some directors and they're being flooded with emails and calls and texts and all through the night. And for me, for the most part, assuming my prep went well enough, the load is a little less, and I feel like my quality of life is pretty good, which is a sort of a sad way to say why you've leaned into something, but I have found it to be true. So yeah.
Well, some people, the idea of one thing sounds great, but then when you actually look at what the duties are, then maybe, some people are more visual, some people are more, they're better not even speaking, they just know intuitively what they want.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. There is a lot of, I've always loved cameras. I've always been fascinated by cameras, and so as a kid, I loved picking cameras up, and so there is something to be said, but perhaps it took me a while to just find my way to cinematography because of that, because cameras were always a big part of it, and I've always been a visual learner and all of those things. So maybe it was inevitable that I would find my way to cinematography, for sure.
Were you good at magic? Like, I could see you being like a magic person.
That's, ventriloquism, if that counts.
Cool.
I was into ventriloquism for a very small amount of time. But I did originally what everybody thought I was going to do was draw. I used to draw like crazy, really into comic books. And so everything, I would just draw. And then that turned into writing for a long time. But it was really, even with writing, my writing was very visually oriented, if that makes sense, very descriptive in terms of again, atmosphere. I think there's something about atmosphere that I have a mini obsession with, just creating the texture of a world is something that I love deeply. And I think with cinematography, I get to do more of that.
And what was your thesis film about?
It was a dark. It was very much inspired by Grimm fairy tales. So my thesis was a young girl whose mother has passed. At the very beginning of the film, we see her only as a corpse. And her father turns to drinking, and the little girl gets obsessed with trying to fix her mom. And so it begins, if I remember correctly, her dad says something like to the effect of, oh, her heart is broken, so she's not around now. And the little girl decides, oh, if I can get her a new heart, then we'll have a new, she'll be fine. And so she goes around, and it takes place in like a sort of fantastical 16th century. And she goes around and starts collecting body parts from various folks. So it's like a little bloody. There's a storybook, like a literal storybook. I had an artist friend of mine, Chris Henry, draw this whole thing. And so it opens with Once Upon a Time, opens up, and filmed it in the Redwoods in Northern California, which was beautiful, great, production value. And yeah, it was a dark horror comedy, I suppose. Yeah. I don't think I would be able to sit and watch it now without clawing my own eyes out, but it was, I was very happy with the attempt. I'm glad I tried something strange. I think that's up my alley. Strange has always been up my alley.
I wouldn't know anything about it.